Hi, this is Dave Hammer. Today we're going to talk about and use a 25-pound Little Giant power hammer. These hammers are a little over 5 feet tall and weigh about 750 pounds, not including the motor. When in use in a blacksmith shop, the hammer should be bolted down for maximum effectiveness and stability. In this video, the hammer sways a bit because it's not bolted down. A power hammer provides a mechanical arm and a stronger blow than the blacksmith can deliver with a hand hammer. This power hammer has a 25-pound mass of steel, referred to as a ram, that is moved up and down, hitting hot steel. Each rotation of the flywheel essentially flings the ram onto the surface below, delivering a blow with much more force than the 25-pound ram weighs. Power hammers are available with rams smaller than this, up to thousands of pounds. A hobby blacksmith may have a single hammer, although most don't. A commercial blacksmith shop will frequently have several power hammers. This picture shows the flywheel, arm and spring assembly, and the front ram guide. The ram moves up and down with each rotation of the flywheel. The nominal length of travel of the ram is fixed. The position of that travel above the anvil can be changed by sliding the arm and spring assembly up and down on the pitman arm. This picture shows the ram with the upper die extending below the ram guide. It also shows the anvil with an accessory called a saddle clamped onto the anvil. The saddle allows the blacksmith to use tools that sit on the lower die without having to hold them by hand. You will see the use of a couple of those tools during this video. The first forging we're going to do with the Little Giant is to put a point on a 1x1 bar. Now, I think it's advertised that a 25-pound Little Giant can handle up to 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, and that's probably about the limit. I was very happy with the capability of it handling the 1-inch bar, and I have no doubt it could handle a little bit more. People get kind of fanatical about this, but you have to be realistic about the size that you can handle with any given ram weight. This next activity, I put the point on. This next activity, I use a handheld tool called a flatter, sometimes called a slick, to smooth that taper. Now, it would have been better if I'd have moved the camera over to the other side, but I didn't. I forgot about doing it. But if you look at this photograph, you can see what that flatter looks like. We're going to be taking a close-up look at a lot of different processes that we're going to go through on the Little Giant close-up, looking closely at the dies. This again is handling 1-inch square bar, and this hammer actually does a really good job with it. I was surprised. This is going to be a rather long section for showing the reduction in this, but we're going to take this, I think, in 3 heats, about 3 or 4 inches of it down to 3/8 inch square, and you'll see that it does pretty well. In the second heat, we're probably at, I don't know, 9/16 or 5/8 already. This hammer, running at its fastest, will run about 300 cycles a minute, and it's actually rated to run up as high as 400, or maybe even a little bit more than that, depending on whose documentation you're looking at. You can see here, I use the drawing side of the dies to reduce it mostly. Then I go over to the flat side of this combination die. It's the same on the top as the bottom. And then just to straighten it out. You want to keep it straight. In other words, keep it square, because it's not impossible, but it's a little difficult to get it back square if it goes off into a funny shape. But you can see it just took a couple minutes, not even that, to draw out about 8 inches or just a few inches of this 1-inch bar down to 3/8. I'm knocking the edges off of the corners. This next section, I'm working with a 1/2 inch by 1-inch bar, and I'm going to isolate the end of it with a spring tool that I've put in the saddle. What I'm doing now is a good example of what not to do. I'm going to nick that back in just a minute. I was trying to do part of it with this spring swage. I mean, you can do it, and I definitely made progress, but it wasn't necessary. You'll see a better example of how to do this a little later. So anyway, here we go. Here I'm going to do what I should have done to begin with, and that is just start at that where I isolated it and used the drawing side of the combination die to go ahead and bring that neck back. So this could be a little hotter. This is out in fairly bright sunlight, even though the hammer's in the shade a little bit, so it's hard to tell what the real color is, but it's lighter than I'd like to. There's not as much heat as I like to normally see. This is better. Okay, now we're actually going to make an ice cream spoon, so that isolated end, I'm going to widen it, and I do that on the fullering side of the combination dies. Now you can, if you're going to do a lot of this type of work and have a larger object that you want to spread like this, you might have another set of dies or 2 more sets of dies. This is a set of just fullering dies and a more aggressive set of fullering dies. Let's come back here. After we get it as wide as we want it or as thin as we want it, then you can take a flatter on the flat part of the dies and just hold it with your hand. Certainly could have a tool to do that went in the saddle, but in this case it's just a handheld tool. So this is going to be a pretty hefty spoon. My ice cream is frozen, so I like it heavy. Actually, this is a rather crude spoon, but it shows you what you can do. You can actually, though, use this hammer or any power hammer to make this very thin. Okay, I'm going to draw back and forge out the handle. Again, remember that this is 1/2 by 1 inch, so I'm moving a fair amount of metal with each stroke. And this hammer's not running wide out here. If it was running wide out, I'd be smashing this a lot more, but it's actually working pretty good. I was surprised at how easily this hammer handled this size stock. Not that it shouldn't, but it's a matter of ease. I'm used to using much larger hammers. Still going. And I'm forging the handle out. I think our handle's going to end up about 8 inches long or something like that is all. And like I say, this is, again, fairly crude, but it's an example. You can make forks, you can make knives, you can make whatever. Very nice. I've seen very nice cutlery or utensils made on power hammers, including large ones. Just keep working it. You'll see a little later I'm going to form the spoon in a swage block, and then I'll have filed it and ground it to the shape I want it. Next we'll heat it so we can cut it off. This is just mild steel. Just cutting it off here on the end. Get another tongs and grab onto that and bend it off. And then I'll spend just a minute or two cleaning up that handle, making sure it's straight and flat. The swage block, I use a rounding hammer, the round end, ball end, and push that down into one of the impressions, the size I wanted. This will end up with a square front, but I'll file or grind that to a little bit around. You'll see it. See it in just a minute. But actually that's not bad for a heavy spoon. There'll be a picture coming up here in just a second. These are fun little projects. Take a few heats. There it is after it's ground. For our next project, we're going to make a leaf, and we're going to use a 3/4 inch square bar to make that leaf. First we put a point on it, the same as we did on the front end of this video with the 1 inch bar. I don't need to smooth this because I'm going to be flattening it. Just taper it out on the combination or on the fullering side of these combination dies. I really like working with combination dies in general. Next I put a spring swage in. It's a fuller, and I isolate the leaf, body of the leaf itself using this fuller, spring swage fuller. When you do this, you have to be careful you don't make that too thin, because it's easy to break that end off if you're not careful when you're creating the stem. Next is to draw out the stem. Just taper it back, and this one I'm just tapering it back. I'm not going to cut this. I'm just making the leaf on the end to show you what can be done with the small little giant. I could do this taper all in one heat. Actually, the hammer does a really good job. Again, I'm surprised at the ease and use and functionality this hammer gives me. Even with this, what would be considered by most blacksmiths a little large, although it's advertised to handle larger stock. Then just on the diamond, push the leaf form out on the other sides. Again, if you're doing a lot of this and had more than one hammer up, you could you might have a set of fullering dies to do this with. Making leaves would be easier on fullering dies, and even if you want to make larger leaves. This is a narrow fuller to cut veins in. These are very shallow veins. I'm not hitting this very hard. No intention to. Just put a nice pleasing little pattern in there. I'm holding this by hand. This isn't something you do with a swage, a spring swage. You could, but then you'd be hanging on for the leaf. If you wanted to put really deep impressions, you could come up with something that would work. I'm doing this in 2 heats. I probably could have done it in 1 heat if I had been a little more aggressive with it. Try not to mess it up. After I'm done with this, I just take it offline, and I use a little wooden swage that I put in the anvil hardy hole to put a little shape on it. There it is. There's lots of different shapes you can give it. I just like to cup them a little bit. Nice looking project. This is the last project, actually. I'm going to show how to make a branch. Put a bark-looking surface on a round bar. You could do it any size bar. You could do it with tapered bar with this kind of swage. I just made a spring swage with little blocks on it that have cuts across that were put in with a zip disc. And it produces a nice product. I've used this quite a bit. Back to a full hammer view, just showing the hammer running pretty much wide out so you can see. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and learned a little bit. I've enjoyed making it. Good day.